I walked the line. The sun was sinking low over the Texas plains, casting long golden shadows across the fields. The cicadas were humming their evening song, and the scent of wildflowers filled the warm air. I adjusted my hat, feeling the sweat trickle down my neck, but it wasn't the heat that had me uneasy. It was life itself. My name's Hans, and in 1963, I was just another man trying to find his footing in a world that never quit moving. I'd grown up on my family's ranch outside of Waco, where the days were long and the lessons came hard. My daddy was a stern man, but he always said, "A good life is just a series of right choices, one after the other. The hard part is sticking to that path." I never thought much of it when I was a kid. I figured I'd work the ranch, marry a local girl, and pass the same wisdom down to my son someday. But life, as I'd learned, had a way of throwing curveballs. It started with Mary Lou. She was the preacher's daughter, with a voice as sweet as summer rain and eyes that could light up the darkest night. We met at a church social, and before long we were inseparable. I loved her fiercely, and for a while, loving her made me believe I could keep my balance on that good line my daddy always talked about. But temptation has a way of creeping up on you like a rattlesnake in the brush. I was young, and when I wasn't working the ranch, I'd take off with friends to the honky-tonk on the outskirts of town. It was a place where the beer flowed freely and the jukebox played until the sun came up. The crowd there didn't care much for rules or right paths. They just lived fast and free. One night I had too many drinks, and before I knew it, I was caught up in a brawl over something I can't even remember. All I knew was the taste of blood in my mouth and the sting of regret when the sheriff hauled me out in cuffs. Mary Lou stood on the porch when I got home, her face pale as moonlight. "Hans," she said softly, "you promised me you'd walk the line." I didn't have an answer. My silence was enough to break her heart. After that night, things changed. Mary Lou didn't leave me, but she pulled away like she was waiting to see if I'd crumble or redeem myself. I didn't know which would happen first. I spent the next few months working the ranch like a man possessed. The sun burned my skin, the dust clogged my lungs, but I didn't care. Every morning I told myself, "Today you'll do better. Today you'll walk that line." It wasn't easy. The honky-tonk still called my name, and some nights I'd drive out there, park my truck in the lot, and just sit. I could hear the music through the walls, the laughter of old friends, but I never went in. Instead, I'd light a cigarette, take a few drags, and think about Mary Lou, about my daddy's words, about the man I wanted to be. One night, as I was driving back from another long shift on the ranch, I saw her car pulled over on the side of the road. The hood was up, steam rising into the cool night air. I stopped and got out. "Need a hand?" I asked. She smiled, that same sweet smile I'd fallen in love with. "You sure you're not too busy walking the line to help a girl out?" I laughed, but it wasn't the laugh of a man hiding his shame anymore. It was the laugh of a man who knew he was on the right path, or at least trying his damned hardest to stay there. We fixed her car that night, and on the drive back to town, Mary Lou reached over and took my hand. "I see you trying, Hans," she said. "That's all I ever wanted." And in that moment, I realized something. Walking the line isn't about being perfect. It's about making the choice every day to do better, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Life will always test you, tempt you, and push you toward the edge, but as long as you keep putting one foot in front of the other, you're still walking. I squeezed her hand and nodded. "I'll keep walking," I promised. Because some lines are worth walking, no matter how many times you stumble along the way.